In this movie, we're going to have a look at the Blob Brush, particularly when working in isolation mode. Now, before we go into isolation mode, what I'm going to do is I have isolated Garl 01 open. You can open the same file. It's in the Project Files folder, and that's within the Illustrator Wacom folder inside the Characters folder. Now, the other thing that you can do with the Blob Brush, just before we move ahead, is create intersecting shapes. You'll notice that this shape is actually on top of this light green shape. But without having to move the paths above and below each other, with the Blob Brush tool, I can actually create intersecting shapes. So I can start to create shadows where I want them without having to change the layer order. It's automatically going to add it in the correct layer order, placing the lighter paint on top of the darker paint. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to select this element and extend it. If I'm working on this element, it's very hard to use the Blob Brush with it. You'll notice that it doesn't really work because it places the paint on top of the other layers or elements, if you like. But if I go into isolation mode, what I can do is then edit it. Now, at the moment, this is a compound path. So if you're working with elements that are compound paths, just go to the Object menu and release the compound path before you go into isolation mode. And that allows you then to use the Blob Brush just as you can with any other element and extend it as far as you want it to be. I'm just going to quickly paint in the black outline where I want it. It's probably a little bit too much, but I can always use the eraser tool to get rid of elements afterwards. And now I have a nice big black background for the finger. And if I go back out of isolation mode, you'll see that forms the outline there. Now there's a little bit more work to do here, but I can just hand paint those elements in if I want to. Or if I do want to use the Blob Brush, I can just make it a little bit smaller using the touch wheel on my Wacom tablet and just paint the new lines in. And of course, you can use this in combination with other features. So if you want to, you can choose the warp tool maybe, just to adjust the end of that, make it a little bit tapered at the end, a bit more hand-drawn looking. We can get rid of this section here as well, just by pushing it off. So using a combination of the Blob Brush tool, the warp tool, and isolation mode, you can customize your artwork. And all that's left for me to do is fill in this gap here, which I'm going to continue with now.